This is a one-off resident visa with simple requirements and expected to be processed within a span of just 12 months. Kia ora and hello, this is Arun Jacob, your friendly and frank licensed New Zealand immigration advisor, coming to you with yet another episode of our series, Everything About Moving Abroad. I'm coming to you from our studios here in the beautiful city of Hamilton, New Zealand. And in this episode, we're going to cover about the new resident visa that has been announced by the Immigration Minister of New Zealand. This has created a lot of excitement for those people who are already here in New Zealand and are already on a work visa and who've been desirous of getting that residence here in New Zealand and establishing themselves and their families here in the country. So what I've decided is I'm going to give you a lot of precise and up-to-date information, and I also made some notes to make sure that I do not miss out on any important aspect of the information that you need. As you're aware, the onset of COVID created a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people here in New Zealand and also outside New Zealand. And for almost 2 years now, there has been no movement on visa applications whatsoever. And hence, this announcement from our Immigration Minister on the 30th of September of this year was very, very important, because essentially what it says is that anybody who has been in New Zealand before September of 2018 and has been on a work visa can now apply for a one-off resident visa. Now let us take a look into what makes this policy so very important for a lot of people. This is a one-off resident visa with simple requirements and expected to be processed within a span of just 12 months, which is great news because a lot of people have been waiting interminably, wondering when they can actually get their residence in New Zealand. So a span of 12 months makes it really, really short and will definitely give them some certainty. Coming to the other aspect or other numbers of this particular resident visa, it is estimated that 165,000 migrants already in New Zealand may actually qualify for this particular resident visa, which is phenomenal because it's not only from your side who's wanting to become residents of New Zealand, but even for the last 2 years, the government of New Zealand has not been able to bring in the required number of residents who will then go on to become valuable workers for this country, earn taxes and keep the economy rolling over. So not only from the migrants' perspective, but also from the government of New Zealand perspective, I think this is a wonderful decision which will help both parties and help create a better and stronger New Zealand. So before I jump into the criteria of this one-off visa, it is important to note that some critical purpose visa holders arriving in New Zealand between 30th September 2021 and 31st July 2022, which is next year, on long-term visas may also be eligible to apply for this one-off resident visa. Not only the individuals, but even the partners and dependents who are coming with them would also be eligible under this new policy. So let's come to the important dates that are pertinent to this one-off resident visa. First and foremost, the applications will be open in two particular phases. And the first phase is opening on the 1st of December of this year, 2021, for some eligible applicants. And for some other eligible applicants, the next date will be the 1st of March 2022, which is next year. And the deadline for all applications for this particular category of visa, which is the one-off resident visa, is going to be the 31st of July of 2022, which is next year. So that gives us a very nice time span where you can apply either under phase 1 or on phase 2, or as I just said earlier, even if you're arriving into New Zealand on a critical purpose visa with your dependents and your partners, you would more than likely also be eligible to apply for this one-off resident visa. So essentially, the main selection criteria for this application or for this one-off resident visa is to assist those people who are already in New Zealand with the purpose of undertaking work and contributing to our economy. So it is mainly aimed at those people who are in New Zealand on a work visa. And some of the important things that will be part of this policy is that it is not only helping the individuals, but also those New Zealand businesses who've been struggling to attract good workers into their organizations. And this policy will also give the New Zealand businesses the confidence that they can go ahead and continue to employ those people who are already here in New Zealand and already on a work visa, because they are now assured that these people will go on to become residents here in New Zealand. Right, now here's some more very, very critical information about this one-off resident visa. Number one, applicants must have met the criteria to be able to apply for this resident visa on 29th of September 2021, which is this year. So if you had met the criteria on that particular date and you're already in New Zealand and you are on a work visa, then you'd be able to apply for this particular one-off resident visa. To be eligible, you must have been in New Zealand on 29 September 2021, as I just mentioned, and you should also be on an eligible visa or have applied for an eligible visa on or before 29 September 2021 that is later granted. You must also meet one of these criteria that I'm going to mention next. And like I said, it is not just being present here in New Zealand on a particular date, but you must also necessarily meet one of these criteria that I'm going to talk to you about next. The first one is that you must have lived in New Zealand for 3 years or more, or you must earn at or above the median wage of $27 per hour here in New Zealand, or you must work in a role on a scarce list. So if I have to recap that very clearly, you must have been in New Zealand on 29 September 2021 and should be on one of the eligible visa categories, or you have applied for one of the eligible visa categories. Plus, you must also meet one of the criteria of having lived in New Zealand for 3 years or more, or earn at least the median wage of $27 per hour or more, or work in a role which is on a scarce list as published by the Immigration Department of New Zealand. There could be an interesting situation where some of you might be eligible, but you're not actually present in New Zealand, but in our neighboring country, which is Australia. Now, for people like that, there is a glimmer of hope because, again, the policy says if you meet the criteria for eligibility but are in Australia and have been unable to return to New Zealand by 29 September 2021, you may be considered eligible for this one-off resident visa. So bear in mind, it is not a written in stone, but you may be eligible for this one-off resident visa. If you had for some reason left New Zealand and gone across the ditch to Australia, got stuck there and could not return back into New Zealand by the 29th of September 2021, I believe Immigration New Zealand will take a favorable look at your application and you may be eligible for this one-off resident visa. And now comes the crux of it. So what is an eligible visa? What is the kind of visa that you need to be on to be able to meet one of the necessary criteria? Number one, you could be on a post-study work visa. Number two, you could be on a talent, in brackets, accredited employer work visa. Number three, you could be on an essential skills work visa. Number four, you could be on a religious worker work visa. Number five, you could be on a talent work visa, which, as you're aware, includes arts, culture, and sports. Number six, you could be on a long-term skill shortage list work visa. Number seven, you could be on a Silver Fern practical experience work visa. Number eight, you could be on a trafficking victim work visa. Number nine, you could be on the migrant exploitation protection work visa. Number 10, you could be on the skilled migrant job search work visa. Number 11, you could be on the victims of family violence work visa. Number 12, you could be on the South Island contribution work visa. Number 13, you could be on a work visa that was granted to you under Section 61. And number 14, some critical purpose visitor work visas could also be considered. All right, moving on from the eligible visa categories, let's look at who are the applicants earning at or above the median wage. Well, as per my notes, it means that to be eligible under this criteria, you must be paid the median wage of New Zealand $27 per hour or more as on 29th September 2021. So there are two figures there which are important. The dollar figure, which is 27 per hour or more, which is the median wage. And the second important number is the date, which is 29 September 2021. Moving further, after what are the eligible visas and what is the median wage, we'll then move on to applicants working in a job on a scarce list. And as per my notes, to be eligible under this criteria on 29 September 2021, you must work in a job that is on a scarce list as published by the Immigration Department of New Zealand. While this is great news for those who are eligible and are present in New Zealand, unfortunately, it may not be the greatest of news for those who are outside New Zealand. Because again, as per my notes, visa holders outside New Zealand are not eligible for the 2021 resident visa. This might be a bit unfortunate, but as you're aware, it is not a one-door policy into New Zealand. Check with us at AJV Global and we might be able to assess your particular circumstances and yet be able to offer some solution even if you have been outside New Zealand and not eligible for the one-off resident visa 2021. Let's get to the nuts and bolts of this entire process now, which is the application process. Well, my notes say that the 2021 resident visa will be open for applications in two phases, which I already mentioned earlier in the session, with the first group of people able to apply from 1st December 2021. So hang in there and keep that smile pasted on your faces, and it's only a matter of time before you can start applying under phase 1 of the one-off resident visa. And also from 1st December 2021, you can apply if you have already applied for residence under the skilled migrant and residence from work categories before 29 September 2021. I repeat that. From 1st December 2021, you can apply if you have already applied for residence under the skilled migrant and residence from work categories before 29 September 2021. Or you have submitted the skilled migrant category expression of interest, or EOI as it is popularly called, and have included your dependent child in the expression of interest aged 17 years or older on 29th September 2021. So that's the wording of the policy. And the interesting thing is that it appears that children even above the age of 25 who are in New Zealand and their parent or parents are able to apply for the one-off resident visa category may be eligible because it was not their fault that for 2 whole years their applications could not be processed. Immigration New Zealand, in its usual professional, friendly, and understanding manner, I'm sure will consider children who have been stuck in New Zealand and were not able to process their applications and make that little allowance for them so that the families can stay united. In the second phase, which starts from the 1st of March 2022, all other eligible applicants can start applying as well, including all others who have submitted a skilled migrant category expression of interest. However, remember the final date. All applications must be made by 31st July 2022. That is the absolute final cutoff date for the one-off resident visa category. So remember that very carefully, and if you have any concerns whatsoever, give us a call and connect with us at AJV Global, and we'll more than happily take you through the process and the deadlines and ensure that you do not miss any of these very important deadlines. One of the other very important points about the one-off resident visa category is that those who are eligible to apply from 1st December 2021 will receive an email from Immigration New Zealand by the end of October with further information. So you would have more than likely already received this email, or if you have not received, be patient, hang in there, and if you were eligible, there are some very smart systems inside Immigration New Zealand. I'm sure your name will get flagged and you will receive that email notification from INZ. And of course, last but not the least, a very important question about how quickly will my application be processed once I apply for the one-off resident visa. I know you guys and girls have been extraordinarily patient and have been waiting for a very, very long time to get that light at the end of the tunnel. So the good news is that Immigration New Zealand says that they will process most applications within a period of 12 months, if not a lot faster. So I think overall that is great news for all you people who have been very, very patient and looking forward to being able to make that application and become residents of this beautiful country called Aotearoa. Well, I hope you were happy with that update we gave you about the one-off resident visa. There have been a lot of questions and queries coming to us through email and through our telephones and through various other channels, and hence I thought it was important for me to come out and share some critical information. Not everything I said on this bulletin might be crystal clear, because please understand immigration is a legal process and sometimes legal terminology is not very clear. And as I said, and I repeat this one more time, pick up the phone and give us a call at AJV Global, and we will help sort out any queries and doubts and ensure that if you're eligible and you would like to stay back in New Zealand, we are the people to talk to. The simple answer to that is not to take the risk of leaving New Zealand, because even if you do apply for the one-off resident visa and you leave New Zealand, there is a high possibility that they will stall any process on your application. So my advice to all of you would be to stay on in the country. You're this close to attaining that goal of residence. So I would say stay on in the country and not take that chance. And once it's all done and dusted is when you can go home. That's a very good question. So if you are on an interim visa, it depends on what basis that interim was granted. So before the interim was granted, were you on one of the eligible visa criteria? If yes, then being on the interim visa will not be a problem for you to apply for the one-off resident visa. Good question. Do you require a police clearance certificate? It seems to be no at this stage, but a visa officer might ask as he or she is processing that particular application and might seek a police clearance certificate, but the initial information is no. Medicals can be tricky because it depends on when your last medicals were submitted and if there was any change in your health condition. And there might be a requirement for you to submit something called the limited medical report. But then again, this could be a bit tricky, and so it's best that you check with AJV Global. We can assess your situation and advise you professionally whether you require medicals or not. As far as English is concerned, there is no requirement for any English language requirement. The simple answer to that is yes, because that is one of the criteria saying that you should be employed in one of the scarce list. And if you are able to provide enough documentation from your employer and through other records like your tax payments, and if you are able to prove that you've been employed in the scarce list, then you should be eligible to apply for the one-off resident visa category. Good question. I wish I could share the information and give you a standard figure, but unfortunately, there is never a standard visa application. The criteria differs from person to person, family to family, the number of people in that particular family. All I can tell you is we've made it quite affordable, and we will ensure that it is a proper give and take where you pay us